Beryl Bainbridge continues to examine the concept of a nation divided in Part 2 of Forever England.
Time was when the name Barnsley signified coal. And if England is indeed two nations, between whom there is no intercourse and no sympathy, where better to come than here, to a family whose forebears stoked the flames of an industrial revolution and whose livelihood depended on the mucky product of a petrified forest. Jeff Britton is an accountant, and his wife Rita runs the dress shop, Pollyanna. They asked me to dinner to celebrate a wedding anniversary of friends and a reprieve from death.
Actually, I think it's nice because when I say 25 years to Jill, and you think, God, she can't have been married 25 years. Now, when I introduce Mark as my, you know, this is my son, and people always say to me, isn't he lovely? Is he your youngest? And I always say, no, I was a late starter. But I wasn't that late, actually. We tend not to count our wedding anniversaries, but you were married very young.
Oh, very young, yeah.
Child bride.
Child bride,
Yeah,
yes.
very young. And this, by the way, is my 4th anniversary.
Is it 4 years?
Not since you were married.
No,
No.
it's 4 years.
Just to cheer us up a bit.
It is very cheerful.
Very cheerful.
It's
4 years since what?
Since I had cancer. It's 4 years to the day. And so it's 4 years since I found out what life was. Yes, 4 years.
You look at a lot better than you did 5 years ago.
No, she
very
looked
well.
fine. She looked fine. I went to see her, and she said, "Oh, she said, you do look ill. Are you all right?" I mean, there was me. She'd had a breast off, and there was me, sort of.
Though her mother mightn't have told her much about opera or ballet or the benefits of higher education, Rita can't ever remember a time when she doubted her own capabilities. 20 years ago, she opened the first boutique in Barnsley.
I'm not sure I would have worked, actually, simply because, not because I don't think women should go out to work, but because I think you probably, if you are working and your children are small, you miss a lot of enjoyment of them.
I think you were always there, though, Reed, weren't you? It's
Oh,
just
well,
that the
but
kids weren't brought up in
it's
a
just that Pollyanna was
conventional
there
way.
before the children were there, and so that they really had to fit in with my working life. But I'm not sure it's done them any harm. I mean, my mother was always working when I was small. I remember sometimes if I was ill, I used to miss it very much. But my grandmother was always there, and it's like that with my children now, because my mother's always there.
Because you were brought up by your mum, that you had a very strong female influence.
Oh, I'm
made
sure,
you
'cause
into you go into business and get
I'm
on.
sure. My grandmother was very matriarchal. I mean, she only died about 6 years ago, and she was 91 when she died. And she was the centre point for the family. I mean, a mind as sharp as a razor, right to literally the minute that she died. I mean, your mum was, she thought...
She was always at home.
And a woman's place.
And where was Dad? Was he away or at the family?
No, it was at work, but he only worked about half a mile away, so I spent most of my time with my dad, working.
So
in the
you were
foundry.
influenced by Dad?
I would say so, yeah.
I think in the beginning, probably Jeff's mother and I didn't get on so well because we had sort of great differences of opinion.
About what?
About working mothers and things like that, but I think I was possibly as much to blame as her.
But do most men really prefer their wives to be at home?
Well, I think it's a bit different for us anyway.
probably do.
Because I work in Rita's business as well.
Yeah.
So it's like both our businesses, isn't it?
I'll get it back. They've done well for themselves through a combination of hard work and nous. It's a long way from the pit and the foundry and the tin bath in front of the fire to this Dutch interior of a home, this still life with artifacts.
I think I went into accountancy because my old man said, you're not going down the pit. It's about as simple as that.
So the
You got a
natural
choice.
alternative was accountancy.
Well, I mean, you ring somebody up your door, don't you?
I'll be going to.
Yes,
Have you
of
got a
course.
job?
Progress is inevitable. We all know that. But what do you do if you're one of those who are being left behind in the process, who belong to a community which is growing impoverished? What do you feel inside you when you realise that there's going to be nothing for your grandchildren to do when they're grown, and that the ground is being cut from under their feet, and that even now their fathers are being brushed up to be thrown on the tip like so much rubbish? Do you look into shop windows and dream? Or do you see in those cold and perfectly featured mannequins a reflection of those remote and alien beings who rule from the south, who posture behind the glass of the television box, talking of economic factors and budgets and the balancing of books? Hands touching, they give a deadly benediction. Does the ordinary Barnsley woman buy her clothes here?
Oh, yes, yeah. I mean, we've got miners' daughters, miners' wives. I think it's probably what makes us a little bit unique, and why I probably wouldn't move is because Polly's more a kind of, it's a meeting place. It's not, all right, we are a shop and we have to sell because otherwise we wouldn't exist. But it is a meeting place for people, and we get market traders in still with a leather pinny on, and all kinds of people right across the board.
You have a budget account system, don't you?
Yes, we do. I mean, we couldn't sort of run it any other way because, I mean, obviously even the big stores have to now, and so do we. And you know, it's good. Our customers know what they can budget for.
Don't you think that's just some of us do that, not the
Oh,
vast
yeah,
majority?
yeah. I mean, but
I mean, if we just look now, and it doesn't look as if many of the women are exactly dressing well.
no. But even if you went into Bond Street in London, how many women would you see? Probably a few more than you would see in Market Hill, but not. I mean, you wouldn't turn at every woman, would you? And even on the Champs-Élysées, I mean, there's only, even there are only a few.
When you're young, you don't give tuppence for durability. You could wear a string of beads and a carrier bag and feel like $1 million.
The big multiples have gone to places like Taiwan, and they have set a precedence where people think that is the norm, and it isn't. If you buy a cotton blouse there, you're probably not paying a fair price. It's probably not made as it should be made, but you're getting what you pay for anyway. And they are giving someone a bowl of rice for doing it. Well, it might be better that they have a bowl of rice. Where do you stop?
Yeah.
But I really feel that these firms exploit rather than help.
Right.
If you take someone like Muir, she's totally British. Her fabrics are British, and they're made in Britain, which means they are paying a fair wage for what they are having made.
Did the strike affect business?
Oh, yes, yeah. Actually, it was almost like a civil war. I always remember one of the days standing here last summer and watching the miners' strike, the parade go past them. Arthur Scargill was at the head. And two women were standing here, two of my customers, and one of them was saying kind of like, what a bunch of louts, and the other one turned around and said, there they are, marching for what they believe in. And I think that summed up the attitude in Barnsley. I mean, we were split down the middle. It was almost like the American Civil War. I mean, it was such an emotive subject. And I always think that, I like to think that I'm a moderate, and I could see what was happening from both sides. Having said that, I think my sympathies always tend to be with the miners anyway, because it's got to be. I mean, they're a great bunch of men, and I think when anybody threatens them, no matter how they talk about the economics or whatever, you've got to feel for them.
from the north, as I do, and you leave it, as I did, you have ambivalent feelings towards the old working communities, and sympathy isn't one of them. It's more an uneasy mixture of jingoism and irritation, sentimentality and mistrust. For you broke away from a narrowness of outlook and a lack of expectation which well nigh crushed you. And yet, the heart lies back there in the past, and everyone longs to return and find things just as they were, the home fires still burning and the wheel going round. John Warburton is Rita's cousin. He's an electrician on the coalface. His son Robert works on the surface. His dad had his name down for the pit years ago, rather like reserving a place at a posh boarding school. John has put in for voluntary redundancy. There were things that happened during the strike on both sides which disgusted him. He doesn't like his job anymore. The team spirit has gone and they've all lost confidence. The divisions have grown too wide.
You and Rita were brought up more or less, well, you saw a lot of each other.
Yeah, we're like brother and sister, me and Rita. But you know, I think we don't see a lot of each other now. I think it's, you know, we're both being busy like, but as families did. As families we're more close than what me and Rita are like, as far as that goes. But some may say, I mean, they were probably all on a level then, you know. I mean, she's busy with her business, isn't she? And we're busy at work. But it's all, you know, it's sad really when you think. When you think back what it used to be like, I think they were a lot happier at times then than what such as Robert knows now. They weren't as much money, and, you know, one thing or another, but they found more to do without money.
Did you want to go down the pit?
Well, I was down pit like, but
But that's what you wanted to do when you left school.
Oh well, I had a couple of things, but just I think pit Barnsley is mining.
And was that because your dad's a miner and you wanted to be like your dad?
Yeah.
Did you want him to go down the pit, John?
Well, not particularly, but I mean, there weren't a lot happened to him, you know. It was at that time when he left school that there'd never been any trouble with recruitment at pit. They'd set anybody on at one time, you know. If you never had a job in this area, because there were always one at pit. But as Robert left school, they were started clamping down at recruitment. And he would actually have to work for, what, about 15 or 18 months more like that. But I'd had his name down for a job at pit for a number of years.
I'm satisfied with the job, it's just that you're frightened to death, like a bit of insecurity. That's where problems start. I mean, like when, well, not long since, but that way, there were all these rumours saying that pit were going to last 5 years. They've just sunk a new shaft. I say £40 million plus.
Did you say 40 million? So they obviously can't close that one, can they?
I mean, things like that obviously nerve you, because where are you going to go after that? Did they transfer you? Did they send you somewhere else? And if they send you somewhere else, if they send you to Selby, or Barnsley's done, it'll be a ghost town. Everybody will go.
I hadn't worries he had. He has. I mean, as you just told you, I mean, there's threat of redundancy and pit closures, and even that union said there's threat of strikes and overtime bans. I mean, we're getting it from both sides. But at that time of day, when I started, there were no big strikes. There were just occasional little flurries, you know. Might have been a day, might have been a week strike. But you'd no threat of losing your job. There's no fears like that, you see, where today they have.
In a way, we knew what we were fighting for, we tried. We've come out like this, good some ways, bad others. You've got to take good with bad.
See, it's all old mining, isn't it, and it's all old mining area. A lot of pits are 100-year-old and more.
In 20 years' time, the scars will have healed, on the landscape at least. Unlike man, the earth grows young with every spring. This was just one more battlefield of industrial England, and soon the tracks will be lost in grass-soaked meadows, and only the miners will remember that here they stood their shifting ground, dazzled by glimpses of Camelot. If you can't bag coal anymore, you can bag dresses at S.R. Gents, the clothing manufacturers, one of the biggest employers in the area. Margaret Warburton works here, printing labels to go on the dresses. They're not Pollyanna sort of garments, but the making of them kept the wolf from the door when John and Robert came out on strike. She's not saying the strike flattened them, not like some people, but it was awful knowing how hopeless John felt, sitting at home sorting out his collection of seashells, eating his heart out with worry over Robert and the future.
Wasn't it in the old days the things that they always said that I'll never let my child go down the mine?
I said that with
that.
Robert.
Yeah.
As he grows up, you know, from childhood to manhood. I mean, he's 21 now, I couldn't stop him, you know, even if I wanted to, and I wouldn't try him. I think if the lad wants to go down the bit, he's a right to go down. You know, I mean, who am I to interfere with his life?
When the strike came, you were the breadwinner.
Oh, yes, I had to be. Like so many other wives. As you know, I work here full time, and we swap roles, John and I. He's always helped me in the house anyway, but of course, it fell on him even more. Housework and of course cooking. While I held the fort here, he held the fort there, so to speak. I think there was great relief over the community when they went back. Because, I mean, many had got in debt. We were fortunate we weren't in debt. But to be quite honest, I had a wage coming in that Friday and we'd only £40 in the bank when the strike ended. So we came to near the edge, but not quite over, if you understand.
Some people remember a time when they came to the edge and fell over it. Jeff's dad, Mark Britton, was a young lad during the strike of 1926.
We used to go to bottom of canal for coal, where it had come off at barges, swim for it and dive, all four of us. And of course it makes you think that you don't want to go through that, doesn't it? I'd already made my mind up like that I didn't want to live like my dad had lived. Yes, he worked till 1936, and then the pit that he worked, well, not actually the pit, but the seam that he worked in shut up, and of course at 56-year-old he was out of work, and of course there went a cat in hell chance in getting a job in this district at 56-year-old. So that killed him. No doubt about that.
You mean literally killed him?
He killed him. He was that miserable. That, you see, I was working and had to keep the family.
What were you working at?
I was working in foundry.
He'd always been interested in casting, and he made his first furnace in the backyard out of an old drum. The authorities were giving his dad naught but 4 shillings a week, and even then they were harassing the life out of him, snooping about the house, inquiring about the furniture and whatever bits and pieces he had, making sure that he didn't own a piano or anything that wasn't absolutely essential to keep him body and soul together. It would melt a man, the way they treated him, as if he was nothing but scrap.
Are you bitter about the beginnings of it, though, about what happened to your dad?
Well, it's no use being bitter, is it? I mean, my father was in the same position as every other miner in this district. If they worked 2 days a week, you know, that was standard practice in this district. When they were short of work pits, they all worked short weeks, and 2 and 3 days a week, that was the rule. It was quite a well-known saying in this district that if a man were killed down pit, that didn't matter. There were plenty of men. But owners didn't like a horse killed because they had to buy one. That's what they used to think. And that's bitterness, isn't it, really? my opinion about pits is that I've never known anybody working down a pit from a deputy to a manager who liked it. They all would have liked another job. I've never seen anybody, and I know there's a lot of talk now with unions about they don't want to lose their jobs. But once upon a time, anybody that could not work a pit, could get out of it, they would do. They want some money, could get out.
You had an accident when you were in the family, didn't you?
Yeah, I walked into some metal. You know, dropped my right leg into about a foot of motor down. So, of course, it didn't do it any good.
So you lost your leg by having it burnt off?
Yeah, that's right. And it seemed to do me good. I've done better since I had it burnt off then, but it seemed to make me use my brains a little bit more instead of brawn.
This guy.
His son Jeff has done well too, with plenty of clients on his books and a posh office in town.
Just have a quick look at the partnership agreement. I'm going to take Beryl down to Shotty's, I think. Okay. See you. Ta.
Should we go off?
Yep, come on.
We're going in the Jeep or whatever it is. Have you got nice memories of being a child?
Yeah, great. And everybody.
Yeah, well, but everything always seems so different, doesn't it? I mean, it's sort of... I'd never know whether when you look back on things, if you haven't distorted them so much.
Well, you don't distort them. I remember this is a really big hill. Eh? It's called Littleworth Lane, this. Rumour has it Oliver Cromwell walked down here, said this is worth little, so they call it Littleworth Lane. But Oliver Cromwell walked down every bloody road in England, didn't he?
Oliver Cromwell had his Ironsides and we've got the Iron Maiden. And both of them, with the best of intentions, beat the hell out of the North.
Oh, look at the buses. What's wrong with them? They don't look old to me.
Well, these buses.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
those are a bit gone.
This scrapyard at Shotty's Island is where the old buses come to be recycled. The firm who run it are clients of Jeff, and one of the partners used to be a miner.
Why is Barnsley sort of famous for being scrap metal? Why do they always do it here?
Well, probably 100 years since there were a lot of foundries. So it'd start by supplying the foundries, wouldn't it? But don't forget they didn't have buses then. But you've got a lot of expertise. I've just been saying the skill is knowing what that is.
Yeah.
You won't have a clue. And you won't have a clue what's in that. But like they've got some things down here that might be, what's more expensive metal do you think?
Aluminium.
Can be worth 500 or 600 quid a ton.
Exactly.
How old are these buses then, Jeff? I mean, these number plates are at least 20 years old, aren't they?
Between 20 to 25 years old.
Yeah. And have they got
As you can see, there's no letter.
That's right. Right. And have they got a certain time when they scrap them?
Not really, no.
That's the one I feel sad about, that one. The Liverpool one, yeah.
They can reduce a bus to a bundle of metal in 20 minutes flat and turn it into something useful. It's a pity they can't do that to people, though God knows who would have the skill to pick out the most valuable parts of a man. When they've done their crushing, they send it all off for export, and somebody else turns it back into more vehicles. If you want to keep the scrap industry booming, rush out and buy another car.
All these people that say the miners should be in a job and they shouldn't close the communities. I mean, if you really want to keep a miner in a job, burn the coal it produces. That's what you've got to do. It's as simple as that, isn't it?
Would you ever have gone down the pit?
To work? I would have had to do something else. I wouldn't choose to do. Would you?
I don't know.
Would you rather be a writer or a collier?
I don't know, it's sort of romantic though, isn't it, the idea of miners and mining, or it used to be.
I don't think you're a very romantic person then, Beryl.
Why, you don't think of it as that?
Yeah. What? Digging coal?
Is that a pit over there?
That's the other side, shut.
Good God, they're in for a surprise. Roy Fellows works in Rita's shop. He went to Reading University to do history of art and then switched to sociology. Later, he studied criminology at Cambridge. It seems odd, after all that, to find him here, playing with dolls. He took me to dinner at McFly's restaurant outside Huddersfield and explained why he'd come back to the north.
There's only one reason I'm in Barnsley, really, and that's because of Lynn and my girlfriend, who had a very serious car accident. And we had to come back to Barnsley because of the support structure. She was very severely disabled. I didn't want to give up work, and there was no way I could have lived in London, which is a fairly anonymous community, and expected just friends, if you like, to simply take on the supporting that I needed so that I could engage in sort of normal work. So we had to come back to the north of England because her family was here to support, my family was here to support, and it allowed me to get on with my work, which was very important to me. So that's the reason we came back to the north of England. And once we were back, we just had to find, I just had to find something I could do that would sort of stimulate me, keep me interested, and also give me time to be with Lynn, but also support Lynn whilst I wasn't there. And so we came back. No. I mean, we basically came back for the support structure, and that's what the community up here provides us with, and a very strong support structure. In fact, it's a very strong network because of the sense of family in the north of England. The thing is that when you come back to the north, they always think of you as a failed southerner, which I find quite amusing. Somehow you've come back because you haven't made it in the big city.
Yeah, a spy. What are they looking for?
That's right. They're always coming to look down on it. And I find that, I at least found it initially very, very frustrating. This idea that, you somehow had to come back because you couldn't make it in the south. And that wasn't true at all. And the fact that we're in the shop or maybe out for a drink or whatever, and you're talking to people, and you try and introduce maybe a different way of looking at things, you're almost treated like a leper. And that's what's really difficult, is that you're actually in a sense between two cultures, almost. That you don't really fit in the south because you're the token northerner and therefore, Ibar Gum lad. And if you come back to the north, you're a bit of a pull. I mean, I was amazed when I first moved back.
In a way, he is a token northerner, from my point of view. He's articulate and opinionated, and as such is as recognisable as the sloping streets and the dark, satanic skies. The next morning, I went to meet Roy's mum and dad at their house in Carlton Village. Roy was still talking.
Take my own village, for instance. I mean, it had a pit at the top called the Wharncliffe 1, 2 and 3, a pit at the bottom called the Wharncliffe 4 and 5. Both those pits closed. If you now look, there's nothing, just empty field. But it's that breaking up of the community and breaking up of a sense of identity of a community that I think has got a lot to do with what's happening in Barnsley now.
Well, there doesn't seem any reason for going to most of the north, does there? I mean, work-wise, I'm talking about.
Well, no, if you take London out of the south, it's no different to the north. If you go to somewhere like Rayleigh in Essex, or out to Slough, the life is exactly the same in Slough as it is in Barnsley. Not slightly bigger, but it's exactly the same. It's only London that makes the difference.
Yeah.
I mean, the south is affluent, it's booming. Where are the most Tory MPs based? In the south. It's like when Scargill, when the strike was on. It's no good marching through Barnsley. We know there's a strike on. What he should do is he should be marching through London every week. He should let the people of the south know what's really going on, and let them know for the fact that, yes, they can sit in the south and say, well, we think the mines should be profitable, therefore we are going to make 5,000 of you redundant. But what should be hammered home to them then is, well, that's all right, but for the next 20 years, you'll still be paying me for sitting on the dole. Now, if you're willing to make that investment, you're willing to say, right, we don't want you to have that job, because it's not profitable, but I'm then willing to pay you for the next 20 years to do nothing, I think there'd be a slightly different complexion put on that strike. But it never happened. Nobody ever said it. The press didn't bother. It wasn't worth commenting on. But I think the real tragedy is, it's not this government who's going to get the blame, it's the one that comes in next. Because they've got to pick up on the really hard times.
If they weren't yes men, but half of them's yes men to trade unions, Roy.
Yeah, but you're not trying to tell me Tory party are.
Well, I'm not saying Tory party, they'll be as bad as anybody else.
Yeah, but you always make a big thing, and you always bring out. You do. You always bring out the Labour Party.
No, I don't. I don't.
You do.
You've not come across it yet. We've had it to deal with, Roy.
Oh, I
We've
know
all
all
been
this.
swayed with it.
But you can't bring experience up as an argument.
I know you can't, but I'm not saying that. But they do. There ain't none of them. They should throw all lot out, I think.
I agree with that. And that's why I think we need something like a regional parliament. We need an institution set up that's big enough and that's influential enough to deal with northern problems. If they can't launch it to an...
Roy's dad, Mr. Fellows, doesn't get much chance to express his views. He used to be an ice cream man, and then he became a coal merchant and kept his stock in the backyard.
See the fact that because the Labour Party is run by the trade, it's not run by the trade, but it's affiliated to the trade.
His other son, David, has now taken over the business. David could have gone to grammar school like Roy. He was clever enough. But he didn't want to wear a snobby uniform. Sunday morning in Barnsley, a time to race the pigeons before a pint in the pub. Young Robert Warburton is performing a cornet solo with the Shepley Brass Band. From Hazlitt, which I used to recite over and over when young, simply because it was pleasurable in adolescence to feel mournful, never doubting for one moment that experience was particular rather than universal. Man, he wrote, is the only animal that laughs and weeps, for he is the only animal that is struck by the difference between what things are and the way they might have been.
We've no history any longer. You know that song in the 60s, they paved paradise and put up a parking lot? Well, that's what happens in Barnsley.
Why did you stay in Barnsley?
Basically because I love it. I love being here. I mean, it's my roots. It was my childhood. It's everything I remember. It was such a tight community. When I was a kid, people actually thought for themselves. I mean, we had a lot of roots in the Labour movement. I mean, my grandmother and my uncles, and they used to go out canvassing for the Labour Party. And that was the normal working man. And it doesn't happen anymore because they don't care anymore, because they've taken away the caring. And you see, one of the councillors said something in, I think it was the Sunday Telegraph once, about the people round here being of Viking stock. And his comment was, which I shall never forget, and we care naught for good manners. Well, how the hell does he think we're going to compete with the rest of the world if we care naught for good manners? Naught for good I mean, manners are just consideration of other people. And unless we can fight on other people's terms, I mean, I can see Barnsley or South Yorkshire. Well, I have this theory that if we carry on like we are, they'll build a wall around it and turn it into a penal colony. And we, like Australia used to be, killing everything.
At least the flowers are growing on the grave. Depending on where you live or how you vote, the expansion of the south and the contraction of the north is seen either as an unnatural result of deliberate policies or the accidental effect of natural forces.
I think they've always had a raw deal, haven't they? I mean, all taxes and all best jobs and everything are in London. I mean, richest people live in London, and all people who own all big estates in this district. They've all got London houses, well kept and all. There's a lot of money gone down to the south from the north, hasn't it? To be fair, taxes and everything. And of course, once upon a time, well, they spent it as they wanted, didn't they? It's got better as I've got older anyway, in the north. But, well, south's always been better. It's better farmland. And
better climate.
Better climate. And we've always said they've always been digging coal and iron. That's our job up here, isn't it? Although they've got it down at south, they don't dig it.
Do you think the differences between north and south people, if there are any, are because of the past, a hardship in the past, that northern people have a different temperament?
That's definite. I think, and a bit, as you get a bit further north, they're even worse than Yorkshire people, I think. You know what I mean? They think they're more bitter than we are. They don't forget strikes and being out of work and all. They seem to carry on. And the children, they teach it to the children as well, I think.
The fragile histories of our domestic lives are all we have to go on. Extinguish the embers of the smouldering past and you put out the fire of the future. If only it were true that a baptism of water could remove bitterness from the heart.